St. Francis of Assisi loved Jesus so much, and his love for Jesus flowed from Jesus' love for him. And his gratitude for that love, and not just gratitude for that love, because that love caused him to know himself as being loved by that love. And it disturbed him terribly when that love wasn't loved back. Matter of fact, he ran through the streets of Assisi screaming that love is not loved. And then one of his daughters, many years after, because of her love for Jesus, wound up saying that I have found love, and she was love has been loved. And so it's even the most difficult pains and weaknesses and sufferings of life is because someone has not been touched by love, and they don't know themselves as being loved with so great a love, so that they can love this love with the very same love which loved them. And this is how Jesus was speaking in the gospel of the day today, because Jesus is God and God is love, and even in that relationship, so it's about touching that love, it's about being touched by that love, it's about love. I mean, in a certain sense, the Beatles had it right, but then again, not really. I don't really like the Beatles. But they had this thing that they sang. I heard the song. You couldn't help it. All you need is love. Gang, 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 gang. All you need is love. Love. Love is all. They were right. I didn't like the song. I don't really like their music. There's a couple of good things that I like, like Let It Be, Trust, Mother Mary. Okay, good. But all you need is love. It's true. And one of my favorite women in the gospel is, I have a bunch, but one of my favorites. And my favorite portrayal of one of my favorite women in the gospel is by St. Mark, chapter 5. And there's this magnificent woman who had a problem with a bleeding, a hemorrhage, and the blood can be, like Father, when he was praying, it can be like if there's like a chronic bleeding problem, it doesn't stop. The blood doesn't stop flowing. It can't stop. She went to all the doctors, spent all her money. People, we have different types of blood that just doesn't stop flowing. The blood, whether it's pain, memories, every set of circumstances and every possible permutation and arrangement and rearrangement of the details of every single circumstance in the history of circumstances, in the history of people from the beginning of time, from now until the end. All of it. But this woman, she thought, and in Mark says it in chapter 5, verse 28, if I just touch his clothes, I will be healed. If I just touch him. And there's ways when we can physically reach out and touch, and when we do healing processions, a lot of times we're holding with the humeral veil, and then so our human flesh does not touch the monstrance, because then the monstrance is holding the luna, and the luna is the little gizmo that's holding and containing and exposing and showing the real presence of Jesus, living and true, body, blood, and soul, and divinity, with everything in heaven, on earth, and the whole big, incomprehensible, unreasonable, irrational manifestation of his divine goodness. And then if you reach out and you touch that, okay. So she was on the right track, and she said, she thought. And like Father was saying, we bring with our thoughts the people who are here, the people who are there, because God hears our thoughts. St. Augustine said that. And this woman thought, if I just touch his clothes, I will be healed. Verse 29, chapter 5, Gospel of Mark. Immediately, the bleeding stopped. And that's because in verse 27, she came up behind Jesus in a great crowd and she touched him. And then immediately the blood stopped and she was free from her suffering. And as that happened in the commotion of a crowd, Jesus at once, Mark says in verse 30, realized that power had gone out from him. And he turned around looking in the crowd and asked, "Who touched me?" Now, did Jesus know who touched him? I think he did. I'm not sure. I wasn't there. I didn't see the situation. But I'm pretty certain that he knew who touched him. So then why did he say, "Who touched me"? Well, he had his reasons then, and he has his reasons now. Remember the 10 lepers? He healed all 10 of them. Only one came back to give thanks. And then Jesus said, "Where were the other 9?" Jesus didn't know where the other 9 was. Yes, he did. Then why is he saying, "Where's the other 9?" Answer the question for yourself. That goes back to the garden in the beginning. When I think the whole thing was Adam's fault, not Eve. Because Adam, as a good husband, said, "Honey, didn't God say not to eat this? Where's that snake? I got my machete. Go get some salt and pepper from the garden and bring some things for the fire because we're going to have crispy snake for lunch. I'm going to chop up that snake." It didn't work out that way. But it's Adam's fault. I think it's Adam's fault. They were partners, but Adam. But God, and then, of course, the snake said to them, "Who told you? You can do that." And then God goes to Adam, "Adam, where are you?" You think God didn't know where Adam was? God knew where Adam was. Then why did God ask the question? Well, sometimes the questions are healing, because then questions can expose circumstances, because questions can sometimes clear the way for the contact, for the touching with our mind, with our heart, with our body, and with our soul, so that we can trust him and say, "Lord, take control." So then I could just see the Jewish argument going on. So at once Jesus realized that power had gone out from him, Mark chapter 5, verse 30, and he turned around and looking at the crowd and he said, "Who touched me?" And then all of a sudden they said to him, "Why are you asking us who touched you? You got all these people who touched you. I don't know, one of these 1,000 people might have touched you. You should know who touched you when you're asking us." And then the woman saw this and she goes, "Oh my goodness, I thought if I just touched him, I would get healed. I touched him, I got healed, and now he's having a fit. He's having a divine fit, and he wants to know who touched him." And he was calling her, not by name, but something more by name. He was calling her by the details of her circumstances. And when Jesus wants to call us like that, sometimes we don't understand and sometimes we fall asleep. We have a Garden of Gethsemane moment. He sweats blood and we sleep. And so then it's amazing. In verse 33, the woman, knowing what had happened to her, she snuck up behind Jesus when she touched him. Remember, now Jesus goes, who touched me? And they're having this argument about who touched him. And then she goes, "Oi." And then she comes in front of him. And she says, Mark says that she came before Jesus. She cast herself down at his feet. And she told him the whole truth. "You're looking for the one who thought if I just touch him, I'll get healed. And I was correct in my thinking and I touched you. And you felt the power go out of you. And now I'm healed. And you want to know who did it? It was me. It wasn't them. Don't get mad at them. If you want to get mad at anybody, get mad at me. I snuck up behind you like a little sneak. but I believed in you. I trusted in you. And somehow I knew, like, okay, nobody else could do it. And I came to you. And what did Jesus say to her? You should have came up to me like in the front. Why'd you have to sneak around the back? What do you think I am? I'm not that kind of a person. And he didn't go on some big thing, if you did it this way. No, none of that. She said, Jesus, it was me who touched you. And I think Jesus said, I know it was you. But I just wanted you. I was calling you to come to me with all of the details of your circumstances. And he said to her in verse 54, daughter, your faith has healed you. He didn't say, it's a good thing that you came and touched me and released that divine power. Because, I can do all things. I make all things new, which is true, and he can, and he does, and he did. But he said, daughter, your faith has healed you. Go in peace and be free from your afflictions. The English translation says the sufferings. But the Greek says afflictions. What's the difference between sufferings and afflictions? Not much. They're first cousins. But the details of the circumstances, of the intricacies and the complexities of being touched and touching and needing to touch and wanting to touch and hoping to touch, and all of that gives rise to an infinite variety of medicines. That's what Father Benedict said when he said this: God is full of compassion, always looking for some way to reach the lost and forsaken. Don't try to understand how God will save somebody else. Cardinal John Henry Newman pointed out that the great grace that suits one person is not the grace that suits another. We have no right to say how and when and where God will lead another person to salvation. The ways by which perfection is reached reflect infinite variety. Our wounded souls require very different medicines. God can even lead a person by means of his or her weaknesses and sin. Haven't we all marveled how he can bring good out of evil? So as we continue our healing service, do not worry. And if you worry, and you can't stop your worrying, give your worrying to Jesus. Touch him with your worrying self. And don't worry about stop worrying. Worry about touching him. Instead of saying, Jesus, I'm worrying so much, can you stop my worrying? And I'm still worrying. Say, okay, then you say, Jesus, I'm worrying, and I'm coming with my worry to touch you. And then let your worrying self touch him so that he can do what he does best, what my hero, Papa Votiwa, Cara Votiwa, St. Pope John Paul II, the great father and doctor of the church, refers to as the miracle of the perfect accomplishment of the good. He says, no human sin can erase the mercy of God or prevent him from unleashing all his triumphant power. Just ask my friend in the gospel. If only we call upon him. Indeed, sin itself makes even more radiant the love of the Father. No matter how many and how great the obstacles put in his way by human frailty and sin, the Spirit who renews the face of the earth makes possible the miracle of the perfect accomplishment of the good. And that miracle is him there waiting for us.
The sermon you just listened to was from the Shrine of the Most Blessed Sacrament in Huntsville, Alabama, the third in a series of 3 talks given as part of our monthly Adoration Sodality Day of Recollection. We hope you will share this talk and the mission of the Adoration Sodality with your family, your parish, and your community. And if you are not yet a member of the Sodality, that you will join us. The commitment is simple. Just spend 1 hour in Eucharistic adoration on a monthly, weekly, or daily basis, and pray the I Adore Thee prayer, which all the poor Clare nuns throughout the world pray during their holy hours. It's that simple. You privately choose the time, the location, and the frequency of your adoration hour. But by joining, you spiritually become a part of something so much bigger. Learn more and become a member at iadorethee.com. Let's change the world, 1 holy hour at a time.